Greetings, everyone. Welcome to your special interview. I am Lotus Knight. I am one of your hosts, and we are here to talk to the Wild Champions. So, first of all, I want you to welcome my co host for tonight, Wild Nine. How are you?
Doing good. Glad to be here to be able to talk to the Wild winners.
For sure, we have quite the team of winners here. So, I'm not going to waste any time. I want to bring Tom, Nubs, Raxius, Catharsis, and Zach to talk to us about the championship. So, welcome everyone.
Hello, thank you for having us here. Catharsis is still not with us. I believe that he will be joining shortly after. But yeah, thank you for having us.
All right. Why don't we do some quick introductions since four out of the five of you are here, and it's nice to have so much of the team here, and it's kind of nice for the community to get to know each of you a little bit better. Um, and a quick test, maybe. Let's do this in alphabetical order of your THL names. So if you can handle that. I don't know what you want to say in terms of introductions. You can just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe how long you've been playing in THL with this team, something along those lines. So let's start with whoever is alphabetically first.
So that's me, I think. Yeah,
Yeah,
Illuminator
that's you.
Nubs. Um, so I've been playing in THL since 2020, coming from Bash Bros. Always really a wild player. Moving to its like APM and a couple other teams and stuff. But yeah, now with the coolest team, Mighty Players. But yeah, I've been around for a while, and Wild is the main scene.
All right, thank you. Who's next?
I believe that would be me. This is my first time being captain. I don't know how long I've been with THL. I know that I played mini series because I did Legacy, Hero, and Wild. Um, but this is my first time doing Captain. I did Legacy, Hero, and Wild. Legacy, unfortunately, didn't uh, get there. We were in the final, but not the champions for Wild. We are. Um, but yeah, I also usually play mostly Wild, although I'm taking a break because the meta is eh, not quite there for my taste right now.
Okay, very nice. And who's next?
Catharsis is in here, so I'll take over. I'm Raxius. I've played Wild for a long time, but this is my first THL season. It's been a very pleasant experience.
Awesome. And finally,
I think that would be me. Hello, I'm Zach. Um, I've played PHL on and off like for the past year, maybe 2 years at this point. Um, Generally a wild player. I've been playing since open beta, way back in the day in like 2013 or whenever that was. But yeah, I only started getting more into the competitive side of things in the past couple of years or so. But yeah, Marty Pliers is the best team I've been on so far. So yeah, go team.
awesome. Yeah, congratulations on your wild win. It sounds like a lot of you are how long has the team been around? I guess I can ask Tom Carter. Like, how long has the team been around? Is this a brand new team, or like have
Oh,
you guys
this is
played together?
yeah, well, this is brand new. Um, I was talking with NHL starting this season, and I was like, hey, do you need any help with anything? Is like in regards with DHL, do you need help with the forms or whatever? And he was like, I really would like captains, and I was like, you bet. And and I ended up signing for three teams. Um, how did I gather this group of individuals? I would say this is more interesting, an interesting story. I believe that I started with Stack. We had Lamp originally. I was not a player, um, and Catharsis was recommended. I don't know who dropped Catharsis. And then I had Nobs, and I had Frax from Shmoo Pirati. And I was like, I want her on the team as well. So yeah, it was quite the conjunction of players that I gathered myself. Like, I looked at it first as we are doing this for fun. So I wasn't looking at it competitively, like straight up, like, oh, I want, like, have the unbeatable team. I want to have people that kind of know each other, and we are going to have fun looking at this. And I think that we managed to do both.
Yeah, definitely. Great. That's good to get some background, just because some people might not know how teams come together, and it's cool that Tom Carter, jumped in with both feet with captaining 3 different teams for the first time, and yeah, the way you're able to find players, it's great. Um, we can jump in and talk a little bit about finals in particular. We'll kind of start there, maybe. One thing I noticed right away is the presence of XL Egg Hunter, and I don't really know much about Wild personally. I know a little bit about it, but not a lot of depth. But I just found it was really interesting. In the 5 matches you had in finals, this was a deck that somebody brought. Your team brought 4 out of 5 of you brought it, and it was also banned in 4 out of 5 matches. Like, any reflections, thoughts about this particular deck in Wild, or like how you saw maybe the matchup going into it, your prep, the final week?
I believe that I will take over this question. So that deck is something that I kind of discovered myself. Other people were going with the deck, but I got rank 1 back to back with it, and I played about 1,600 games of the deck, and I refined it, and it is currently sitting on tier 1, I believe. It's a really powerful powerhouse of a deck that doesn't really allow any deck to have board presence when you're able to do the thing. So that's why, knowing how the spread goes into the matchups, um, we knew that we didn't want them to be able to play things like Miracle Rogue that plays the Giants, and that deck, the Hunter, really eats anything that plays 8/8s, right? That was the idea behind it.
Very interesting. Okay, so this sounds like there's some team prep going on as well, right? Like you all kind of prepped as a team going into the final week.
Yes, we did so much counter lineup work. Um, Zach and I with Nob's lineup, um,
Yeah.
Praxis as well, because of somewhat limited collection. So even XL Egg Hunter is there for Raxus. If you look at the list, it's completely different, but it still does the thing, right? Because we had to cut a couple legendaries and snip here and there, but the main idea was still projected onto the code.
Okay, yeah, very interesting. All right, I mean, since a lot of you seem to be primarily Wild players, let me throw this to a couple of you, maybe, I mean, whoever wants to answer, I guess, too. But what makes you guys really enjoy the Wild format more than the standard format? That's maybe my first question. I think my second question would be, do you notice anything different in the competitive kind of like THL or competitive nature of your prep process or something like that in Wild that you think is very different than standard preparation?
I can speak on this one, I think. In particular, something that draws me to Wild, and this is true for every card game that I play, because I'm also a Magic the Gathering player. I really enjoy finding kind of hidden synergies between cards from various sets that have been released a long time ago, and maybe newer ones now that break older cards. So like Egg Hunter is one of those decks in particular that is amazing, because it takes this garbage pack filler legendary and all of a sudden makes it the best possible card in the deck. But something that I've noticed with Wild compared to standard as far as like prep work for the competitive side of things. Wild players are much more likely to bring pet decks or things that they enjoy playing for fun, whereas standard players, they are much more likely to just kind of play the best 4 classes and the best 4 decks in each of those classes. So going into finals, we knew that a couple of our opponents were bringing pretty much the same 4 decks every single week, and so we were able to really construct counter lineups so that we could have like a impenetrable brick wall that we knew one of their decks would never be able to beat, and that way we were able to guarantee more wins.
Interesting. Yeah, that's good. That's insightful. Anyone else, like a noob or Raxius, any thoughts about this?
Oh,
You
you
can
go on, Axis. Oh, you sure?
Fine, I'll go. So I think there's 2 things that really draw me to Wild, and the first one is the decks are much more eternal, I think, where you can craft, say, Pirate Warrior from 2017, and at least like 20, 23 of those cards, you're probably running that in 2024. That's one thing I really enjoy about Wild. The cards just feel eternal. Yeah, I spent 1,600 dust on patches in like 2016, 2017 or so.
Let's go.
Yeah, and I spent 1,600 dust, and I'm still making use of that 1,600 dust today. And I think that's part of what I really like about Wild. My cards really feel like they have value. In Standard, the rotation happened, and the Leroy that I crafted for the Galakron Rogue that just came out, I crafted Leroy, and then after 4 months, I already have to disenchant it because it's no longer playable.
Mm-hmm.
That's the big thing that I really like about Wild. And the second one is that the playing decks is just really fun. So Tom mentioned Egg Hunter. It's a fun deck because it's just fun. And you know this deck's gonna be good for a long time. You know this deck's gonna be good for a good while. And I very much enjoy repetition and like doing the same thing over and over, getting better at it over time. And Wild decks really let me do that because the deck can be good for like 3-4 expansions, and I'm just doing the same thing, getting better and seeing my own progress.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, the ability to play decks for a really long period of time instead of, after 6 months, they're dead. What about for you, Anub?
For me, I was going to say with the difference with Wild, also playing like Legacy most seasons as well. The prep is, for me personally, is a lot more fun with Wild. I like that you can just cook funny decks and things. It's my favorite part of Wild, just having everything and having the chaos. So I very much gravitate to Wild. I feel like Standard is a very sort of set format, and it's the most sort of monitored format, but I like the uncertainties of Wild. I understand it comes with a lot of frustration for a lot of players, but I love like having like a game every 10 to 15 games that I'm just like, how did they win that? Like that was so bizarre seeing like, for some reason, seeing like Mechathune Druid pop up again and things. It's just, the nostalgia just comes back. It's very funny. Seeing how varied Wild can be. Just as the name suggests, very wild. It can be anything. So yeah.
Yeah. Embrace the chaos, right? Like I do
Absolutely.
think, in some sense, Standard gets figured out a little bit, like Zach was sort of saying before too, and everyone kind of stays in that in what's safe, and you have all these stats and things. But in Wild, right, you can cook things up and try different things, and they pay off. Like you guys, what seemed to happen for finals, which is great.
Right. So going further into what Zach said, and specifically with Nob's lineup, um, there are a couple decks in the finals lineup that you wouldn't ever see on anywhere. Those decks are not playable, but you're able to build these little synergies and make a deck that specifically counters another pegged deck that may be like tier 4, tier 3, um, and and you can play this game of I know that they know that I know, and that thing is not that is missing from Legacy or is missing from for Pro or Standard, But the thing is that when you're playing on a format that is as refined as Legacy or Standard as a whole, and you want to counter, you end up only truly adding maybe tech cards, or you swap a couple cards, right? You're like, oh, I think they are running a weapon deck, so I'm gonna add Viper, and that's basically it. And instead, in Wild, you're like, oh, I think they're bringing this deck. Okay, I'm gonna cook specifically this other deck. I'm gonna do this class that otherwise wouldn't see play here, and I'm gonna counter this deck doing a whole different thing, right? I mean, I'm not adding one card. I'm bringing a different class, and I'm building. Now with Renathal, I'm picking these specifically 40 cards to counter this whole thing instead of just adding one card to counter a weapon. Let's say as an example, right?
Yeah, that makes sense, right? Over the years, there's so many different counters to stuff essentially that's been created, right? And so you have a lot more to choose from essentially, right? You don't just replace two cards here or there, but you can replace 10 or 15 or all, the whole thing to really be, laser focused at beating something, right?
Right, and that's why it makes Wild competitive so much more rewarding for me, and I believe that everyone else can agree on that as well, right? Because you are rewarded if you know these rock paper scissors, but like to the 10th level, um, which you wouldn't see in Legend, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting. Speaking of this kind of idea of like, the reward of winning these matches, right? F2L Viridian has actually won the last 3 seasons of Wild Series, so you guys break that streak from them by winning. I know that you didn't beat them in finals or anything like that, but you do break that streak. In this kind of community or in that wide format, do you guys like keep track of that stuff? You know what I mean? Like have a rivalry, so to speak, where you kind of like want to look forward to beating these teams that are really competitive, or do you prefer to avoid them? Like you're hoping that they get eliminated by somebody else. Like I don't know if you guys had any thoughts about that kind of the history, the recent history, relatively speaking, of THL and Wild and the winners of the Wild Series. Or maybe it's just not on your radar, which is also possible.
Mm-hmm.
No, me personally, as captain, right? Because originally I was not going to be a player. I was very much aware of champions and players. Like even if they are seated differently, knowing that okay, we need to be careful with this player because they tend to do this or that. I was very much aware of that. But and no offense to F2L, but they um, they were not our biggest worry, although they are right the stronger team. Um, we were actually more so worried about Shakers. We're actually the season 11 champions, and um, the Plan team, Grim Sweep. I cannot remember the name because it's a combination of
Yeah.
5 players' name.
So why were you worried about those two teams? That's very interesting.
So I was worried personally about Shakers because they always do that thing where they stay on the low and they then jump in. Like if you look at the standings, I believe that they were like 6th or 7th for weeks on a go, and suddenly they are number 2 or 3. They just jump the rankings so quickly because they have like that strong of players that if they get the right week, will go 3-0, right? Um, and they will surprise you like that. And the Plan T was just strong all season. So we knew that we were probably going to see them more often than not. So we needed to learn more about them. Uh, Again, going back to the people tend to bring back decks. in Wild, you play more people that you play decks, right? You need to know your opponent and not so much the meta sometimes, right?
Hmm.
So some people, for example, refuse to play against some decks, so you can bait bans. You bring a deck that you are not intending to play, but you know that that person hates the deck, so they are going to ban it. You can do things like that. When instead, in standard is more okay. What is the strongest deck? I'm gonna ban that, right? They may have one of the meta decks they are more fond of, but it doesn't matter because all the other decks are in line with this, which is what F2L tends to do more. They don't bring so much pet decks, but if you look at their lineups, it's copy paste.
Right.
They look like the agent from Matrix. They always bring the same four decks. You may see one variation when one of the players brings one different deck, but you will see the same four classes, the same four decks, at least in three or four of their players. So the first one to submit the decks, you're like, okay, I know what F2L is going to do. Again, super strong players, they know what they are doing, and they obviously pick strong decks, but you don't play so much into this I'm playing people mentality that you tend to do with the other teams.
Yeah, it's interesting. The mind games, right?
Right.
Um, so I have a question here. Do you think the fact that there aren't as many nerfs for Wild helps you have a more stable season and predict players better?
Not necessarily, because some people will still play their nerf decks. Again, because people are fond of the idea of I want to do this synergy or not, like Zach said, and the same idea of what Praxis said earlier. Um, your decks feel more eternal. So if you see a nerf, you're probably still going to play it. Or worst case scenario, you're going to change one card, but you're still going to bring the deck. Because Wild has this idea, right, where if a card gets nerf, there is a long queue of another 40 cards that were just waiting for one card to drop to be switched, right? Currently, card A is seeing play. As soon as card A is no longer playable, there is card B, C, D, F, G, like, and so on. So the fact that there are less nerfs is not that stable. It's more of a mentality thing that makes the play pattern more stable for players. In my opinion, I don't know. I don't know if anyone else has feedback on this.
I think there's kind of an extra thing going on with Wild in particular. We've already touched on how there's this enormous card pool, and there are a lot of answers available. And so, what we'll see is even in the absence of nerfs or balance changes or what have you, one deck will be the best in 1 week. So, let's say like Pirate Rogue and Shadow Priest were really, really good at the start of this season. And then everybody knew that Pirate Rogue and Shadow Priest were good at the start of the season. And so the following week, everyone's bringing things like Reno Paladin, which dumpsters aggro. And so then because people are playing Reno Paladin, people pivot to playing like combo decks. And so we're kind of seeing this game of whack-a-mole where people are constantly trying to be playing the metagame and get on top of what they expect others to bring. It's much different from standard where yeah, there are always going to be four decks that are the best, and when one of them gets nerfed, it's not the best.
Right. While pivots more to the idea of rock paper scissors mind games. Like we rely
Yeah,
so much more heavily on that.
yeah. You can predict what the good decks are in any given week, and then be like, okay, I know that my opponent's probably going to bring four aggro decks. I can bring four control decks and just win off the back of that.
As were those core control decks, probably if you look at a tier list, they are tier 4. They would not be playable, But in THL, they give you a 3-0 because you counter a full aggro lineup.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a couple of questions for some of the members, like Rax. You were saying, I believe this is your first season playing in THL.
Indeed.
So, what were your biggest takeaways? Did you feel like you learned anything from the experience in particular with this kind of competitive format? Like, what were your impressions this season?
Well, I think the big notable thing is that even if it's in theory more competitive, I don't really feel it as much, especially because I myself am a normally very competitive player. THL felt more like I'm just going in, playing a casual game every week, and then dipping out, and then coming back again next week, and all that. I play Pokemon competitively as well, and it's a very similar experience where it almost feels casual, even if there is technically stakes. It feels very casual. It's very fun. Everyone's here just to play the game. I really enjoyed my first season, and the only complaint I could possibly have is the fact that especially in playoffs, I had to counter team my opponents a bit more, and then I started spending dust, and now I'm out of dust. But it was very fun. It was very fun. I genuinely I would do it again if I had the dust, or if I lost, because now I have a 100% win rate.
It's awesome. And a question for a noob. I know you were saying that you've played WoW for a while, you've been in THO for a while, and you were saying this is one of your favorite teams. Just kind of curious, like, what would you describe as unique to this team and to your experience with this team? Like, was there something that stood out to you in terms of your experience this season with Markipliers?
I think based on all the teams that I've sort of been on, it was actually quite nice because a lot of faces are quite familiar as well. So Tom's been around as long as I think almost as long as I've been in THL as well. Seen Zakaran as on, and I've played against Catharsis quite a few times. We've had a very memorable match a few years ago that's pinned in both of our teams as well. So it was quite nice to have like familiar faces and things again. I think a unique experience with this team as well. I mean, it just felt very comfortable. Everyone was very supportive of each other. I actually ended up going overseas for a little bit during this season for some family things, and like just how wonderfully the team sort of came together to like sub for me and just keep me in the loop with like things going on. It felt like a very cozy sort of comfy team, and just yeah, it's just yeah, I don't know. It's very nice. It was really cool having like Raxius as well this season. I've seen them around in other servers as well. So yeah, it was really quite cool. I think Clamp introduced me to Raxius, so it's really nice. Yeah, just meeting new people and just yeah, great team dynamics and great prepping as well. Like Tom and Zach are so onto it with their prepping, and oh my goodness, they've guided me a little bit as well because like just with me traveling and things being a little bit out of loop with the meta, and just like I'll post like a list and they're like, oh no, that card got nerfed. I was like, oh yeah, my bad. But yeah, really great. Really looking after one another, and yeah, it's nice.
Awesome. Yeah, well, we're gonna start to wrap up a bit, but like, what's next for Markipliers? I guess. So, are the five of you running it back? Like, are people taking breaks? Like, what's on the horizon here?
So I'm still going to captain for pro, but um, we are taking a break for wild, and for legacy. I have someone else take over for the legacy team. I'm still there, helping around if they need anything, but it took a toll. Doing three teams was not maybe the smartest idea, and between the meta and everything, I believe that and what with Brax said as well, we won, right? So
Go out on top.
right, quit while you're ahead or something, right? Um, so yeah, no, most definitely we are taking a break this season um, because it was was not easy to win. Um, I'm gonna say that, and everyone else can attest to that, or give their feedback on that. But it was really stressful, and so I don't think we are at least for this season doing it again. Maybe next season 13 will not be multipliers. Who knows about season 14?
All right. Are the rest of you also just all taking a break? Some of you free agents looking for new teams, or
I mean, I'm definitely going to come back to Wild this season. I love Wild, but not really sure what team I'll be in. Trying to see who will take me. I guess.
I mean, now you have the title, right? You can be like,
Yeah.
"Hey,
Yeah.
who wants, you know, I'm
Verified.
actually a winner,"
Oh
right?
gosh. Yeah. Yeah.
Rax and Zach, how about you guys?
I'm probably not gonna go again just because again, very expensive on my desk reserve. I like saving those for casual ladder. Also, the appeal of having 100% THL win rate. But if I ever do actually have the collection to like really do THL, I think I would absolutely do it. It's very fun to do it. It's very fun to be competitive. It's very fun to just play wild, having an excuse to talk to more people.
Nice. And Zach?
Can you guys hear me? Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to be continuing my trend of taking every other season off. So I usually will play one season. I'll go really hard, dedicate a lot of my mental resources to thinking about Hearthstone. And then by the end of the season, I'm really questioning every single life decision that led me to spending all of my waking hours thinking about Hearthstone. So I don't expect to be playing another season after this. I might play again season 14, maybe season 15. We'll see. But for now, I think I definitely need to take a step back and kind of remember why I actually like this game outside of competing. Because when you're competing, you look at everything a little bit differently than when you're playing for fun. Like since THL wrapped up this season, I have pretty much stopped playing Wild entirely. I don't think that's a bad thing, but yeah, for like my long-term enjoyment of the game, I'm not going to be playing next season.
No, that's great. I mean, in some level, it's cool to hear like the amount of effort and time and energy you've put into it, and also that it's paid off, right? That you guys came away with a championship, which is awesome. And then, yeah, take a break, right? Enjoy it, so to speak, and let things simmer a bit, right? But that's very cool.
Yeah, no, most definitely. I also got massively on my hours, um, and Zach knows this because, as Nob said, we were the two of us were always back and forth with like, oh, we're doing this, no, we're doing that. Like we were the sous chefs of the team, cooking away decks and counter lineups and things, and it did took um, quite the mental to do that. So yeah, taking a break is the right play.
Nice. Any final questions, Lotus?
My final question is, any last thanks anyone wants to say? Anyone you want to call out? Any shout outs you want to give as you end your season as Wild winners?
I want to give a big shout out to Lamp for kind of putting the team together. I think she was the one that scouted several people and was originally playing. Lamp poached me for a couple of THL teams over the past few seasons, but yeah, she was kind of one of the big reasons why Marty Pliers became the winning team that it is. So yeah, shout out to Lamp.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out, Lamb.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
shout out
cool.
to Lamp and me specifically. I want to shout out Sunday, who got me originally into THL back when, and she subbed for us and got us 1 point that actually won us that week. So we got to the finals because of that, and he had to sink in. Raxus, if I don't know if you were aware of this, if you think that THL was expensive for you, Sandy had taken off for like 3 years, and the lineups were already posted. She had to spend like 40k dust to solve.
Goodness.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
And we got the 1 point. So really a shout out, and every other sub were 8. Um, Again, that's why I added them on the banner, because we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. Really take appreciation on those that subbed with us.
Anything else anyone wants to say before we close our show?
Greatest team to ever do it.
Exactly.
Wild9, any final thoughts, or should we go home?
No, I think we can send it home. Congratulations to Markipliers. Awesome to hear a lot about how you guys came to be, your relationships with each other, just how much, just kind of getting a peek behind the scenes of what it was like to be on the team in a way. So thank you so much for each of you being here and just sharing your thoughts about your experience this season. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having us, y'all.
And congratulations to Markipliers for winning one final time. I want to give congratulations to everyone here. And yeah, that is it for us tonight. I want to thank all our viewers and let you know we're trying to organize Legacy/Bro interviews. I'll let you know if they'll happen. But if not, the new season is coming soon. We're going to have awards this weekend. And yeah, pretty soon we'll be advertising everything that's happening. So keep an eye out, and we will see you all next season. Bye everyone. Have a good night.